Have you ever thought about it? Football was created in England, but two great clubs ever in the history, Real Madrid and Barcelona, are in the Spain. The match between these two clubs are actual drama. They have been dominating in the Europe over 100 years. However, the answer has nothing to do with football. To understand clearly, we need to deep dive to the history.
Football. Viscal Barça, Viscal Catalunya, fuck off. Fuck Real Madrid.
By the late 18th, Spain was no longer a powerful empire. In 1898, after losing the war to the United States, Spain lost Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. It was a national shock, the end of the empire. Inside the country, life was hard, poverty was growing, workers were struggling, and the gap between rich and poor were getting bigger. But not all the cities were the same. In the center of the country lies Madrid, a landlocked capital, built as a political heart of Spain. But in the northeast, on the Mediterranean coast, lies Catalonia, with its capital Barcelona. And these two regions were never the same. Madrid represented central power, monarchy, and control over the whole country. But Catalonia was different. It had its own language, its own culture, and a strong desire for independence. While Madrid ruled Spain, Catalonia wanted freedom. So even before football, there was already tension between these two worlds. Now we are moving on to the foundation years of the clubs. Let's start with Barcelona. The story begins with a newspaper advertisement. It's 1899. Barcelona is already a city that feels different from the rest of Spain. Industrialized, cosmopolitan, fiercely Catalan, and into the city arrives a 22-year-old Swiss football fanatic named Juan Gamper. Now Gamper had already played football back in Switzerland and France. He was obsessed with the game, so he does something simple but bold. He plays an ad in local sports magazine called Los Deportes. The ad basically says anyone in Barcelona wants to form a football club. 11 people respond, and on the 29th of November 1899, those 11 men sit down together and officially found FC Barcelona. But here is what makes this moment so important. Look at who those 11 people are. You have Englishmen, you have Swiss nationals, you have Catalans. What you don't have is Spanish aristocracy. You don't have the Madrid establishment. This club is founded by immigrants and by people who already felt politically and culturally separate from central Spain. That's not coincidence. That's the Barcelona's identity, built into club before they even played single match. Gamper himself becomes the heartbeat of the club in those early years. He serves as a president 5 times. When the club is nearly bankrupt, and it happens more than once, Gamper pays the debts out of his pockets. When membership is failing, he personally campaigns across the city bring people in. Without Juan Gamper, FC Barcelona almost certainly doesn't survive its first decade. The club's famous motto, "Más que un club," more than a club, people think that came later, but honestly, it was true from very first day. Let's cross to the Madrid. Football arrives in the Spanish capital not through the passionate immigrant placing ads in magazines, but through British engineers and businessmen working in Spanish capital growing mining and railway industry. Alongside them, young students who had studied in England come home completely hooked on this new game. Among those students are two brothers, Carlos and Juan Padros, and they become absolutely central to what happens next. From around 1897, groups of football enthusiasts in Madrid are organizing informal matches. The sport is growing fast, and then March of 1902, after several years of the reorganization, the club is formally constituted. Juan Padros becomes the first president. The club is called simply Madrid Football Club. Just weeks after the club is officially founded, they enter a tournament called Copa de Coronación, organized to celebrate the coronation of the new king, Alfonso XIV. Madrid FC, brand new club, reached the final. They lose narrowly, but the point is they were there. On the national stage, immediately, the whole country takes notes. And then comes to the moment that defines Real Madrid's identity forever. In 1920, King Alfonso XIII personally grants the club the title Real, meaning royal. He placed his own royal crown onto the club's badge. Madrid Football Club becomes Real Madrid. Think about what that means symbolically. The King of Spain puts his name and his crown on your football club, you are now officially the club of the Spanish monarchy, the club of the capital, club of the state. To understand what happens to these clubs in next decades, first you need to understand what happens in Spain. By the 1930s, the country is tearing itself apart. On the side, you have the Republican government, elected, left-leaning, supported by workers, socialists, Catalan and Basque nationals. On the other side, General Francisco Franco and his nationalist forces, backed by military, the church, fascist support from Hitler and Mussolini. Now here's the moment that hits hardest for FC Barcelona. Josep Sunyol is the club's president in 1936. He's not just a football administrator, he's a Catalan politician, Republican, a man who openly supports everything Franco is trying to destroy. In August 1936, just weeks after the war begins, Sunyol is driving near to the front lines. He is stopped at checkpoint controlled by Franco forces and he's executed on the spot. No trial, no warning. The president of the Barcelona shot dead because of who he was and what he was representing. The moment tells you everything about what this war meant for the club. Barcelona wasn't just a football club for the Franco. It was a symbol of Catalan identity and Republican resistance, and the symbols to the Franco were dangerous. When Franco takes full power in 1939, the consequences of Barcelona are immediate and brutal. The Catalan language is banned in public, Catalan culture is suppressed, and FC Barcelona, the club that had always represented Catalan identity, is brought to heel. The club is forced to remove Catalan symbols from its badge. Spanish names replace Catalan ones in official documents. For the club, whose entire identity was built around being more than a club, this is an existential attack. Real Madrid, meanwhile, moves in the opposite direction. Franco never directly owned Real Madrid, this is the simplification, but the relationship was undeniable. Madrid was the capital, Real Madrid was the club of the capital. Under the Franco, they received better facilities, more political goodwill, and crucially, their identity aligned naturally with everything the regime wanted to project. A powerful, dominant Spanish club representing the nations on the European stage. In 1950s, when Real Madrid wins the 5 consecutive European Cups, Franco government used those victories as propaganda. Look how great Spain is, look at our club. Real Madrid didn't ask to be Franco's symbol, but they became it. Every time these two clubs met during the Franco era, it was never just football. For Barcelona fans, beating Real Madrid was an act of resistance. It was the one arena where Catalan identity could express itself openly, loudly, without being silenced. For Real Madrid, whether they liked or not, they carried out the ways of being our establishment club, the regime's team. The dynamic resistance versus authority gets burned into El Clásico during these years, and honestly, you still feel traces of it today. The Civil War didn't create the rivalry, but it transformed it into something far deeper than sport. Franco dies in 1975, Spain transitioned to democracy, and you might think it's okay now, it's just football. It never becomes just football. Because the identities that built over decades do not disappear when dictator dies. If anything, they become louder because now people can actually express them openly. In 2010, the Spanish Constitutional Court reinterpreted Catalan Home Rule Agreement limiting Catalan autonomy that had previously been approved by public referendum. For Catalans, this feels like betrayal, like Madrid reaching in and taking something back. Barcelona sees massive street protests, the slogan, "We are a nation, we decide." FC Barcelona has always become the symbol of that feeling. Every El Clásico during this period carries the tension. Beating Real Madrid is not just 3 points, it's a statement. This builds all the way to Catalan's self-determination referendum of October 1st, 2017, where Catalonia votes to declare independence. The Spanish government declares it illegal. Police clash with voters at polling stations. It becomes one of the biggest political crises in modern Spanish history. And where does El Clásico fall in all of this? Right in the middle. Always right in the middle. Before we move fully into modern era, there's a one match from Franco period that deserves its own moment. June 1943, Copa del Generalissimo semi-final. Real Madrid win 11 goals to 1, the largest margin ever between these two clubs. Now, was it just football? Almost certainly not. Reports emerged decades later that government officially entered the Barcelona dressing room before kick-off and warned players about their family's safety. There were also persistent claims that armed officers approached the referee before the match. None of this has been definitely proven. Barcelona players have said they were terrified that day, not of losing, of what might happen if they didn't. And here's the thing, what proves this political dimension never truly goes away. As recently as 2023, 8 years after that match, the clubs are still fighting about Franco. Barcelona's president Juan Laporta, during the press conference about the referee payment scandal, calls Real Madrid the club of the regime. Real Madrid responds by releasing the video asking which club is actually the team of the regime, pointing out that Barcelona won 8 league titles and 9 cups under Franco, and that Madrid had to wait 15 years to win their first league under the dictatorship. El Clásico is most watched club football match on the planet, and part of the reason, whether people realize or not, is that carries all of this history every single time. Those two clubs worked out on it. El Clásico was never just a football match. It was the always question about the identity, about the power, about the who gets to define the nation. And more than 100 years later, that question still has no answer. That's why we keep watching.